I would suggest in that 6-month window, we take it 3 months, a quarter. And for the second question up here, Ellen and myself and Patricia and maybe some others were wanting to work on those competencies that we talked about yesterday. And I think we've defined the levels of knowledge management professionals. Now we go into the competencies, and that's pure tactical now. That's taking the data that we can gather from all of this body, as well as data that we already have from corporations and public organizations, synthesizing it, packaging it together. In 3 months, we ought to have a straw man that's pretty well built out, and then that should be vetted on a wiki or something that you want to share with other people, and then get feedback, and then we can refine it up to that period, and then put together a presentation, get together some consensus, and synthesize it at the end of that 6-month period.
Can you imagine how powerful that would be? To have the community generate that? That'd be fantastic.
You're in charge.
Knowledge management
Sounds like
Go figure.
I wanted just to add to that that although it would seem that competencies rely on defining roles and responsibilities, I think it can be sort of iterative, and also we can help feed the group that might be working on roles and responsibilities with the data that we find, so that people don't have to, rules of knowledge management. You don't have to do things 5 different times, in 5 different ways. We collect the data and then we reuse it and share it and do it as we can.
Yeah, and speaking about reusing data and things that have happened in the past, my name's Jim Lee. I'm a information assurance scholar at Mississippi State, and I know nothing about KM other than the bedtime stories my father's taught me. So, but what I do know is I'm
You had to admit to that too.
I don't know.
There are programs we can get you.
I'm sure there are. So at Mississippi State,
transfer that, Jim.
I don't know. At Mississippi State, I'm in the Management of Information Systems program. Well, we have the same sort of diversity issue that I'm hearing today. And Roby wrote on this years ago about, well, is IS a reference discipline, or do we pull other information from these other disciplines? It sounds like KM's having that same issue. So maybe you need to look at how IS community is handling these same topics. Going to the credentialing standpoint, well, I'm an information assurance guy. So fortunately, IA, that's big, and NSA's into it. So we do have a accreditation body for academia, for a Center of Academic Excellence. GW happens to be one. Unfortunately, don't offer a PhD for it. But so there is a path. I just don't know what that path is for KM. Obviously, it's not the NSA, but you mentioned NIST. That could be a possibility. So these are the things that I think the community needs to look at in order to move forward.
One of the other questions that group might want to ask is it a national certification or is it an international certification?
Right, and I think that's one of the things that hinder the Centers for Academic Excellence is it's an NSA-sponsored thing. So it's not international, like that gentleman was trying to promote earlier about that international community and standardizations body.
I want to say something. I'm a little worried about this. I mean, everything sounds wonderful, but then I'm an old bird, and I don't want this to become so big and so amorphous and so Kleiner Cohen-like, which also started out as a really good idea and turned into a $10 billion in industry, and we still don't get anything done. This is knowledge management. It would be nice if we could come up with something that's relatively not complicated, something that isn't got so many tentacles that you can't figure out which part of the octopus you're playing with. We had a meeting with our executives not too long ago. It feels like 15 years, but I think it was only 2 weeks, wherein the head of IT said, we're dealing, everything that you're doing, Patricia, in knowledge management, we're dealing with data, So you know what the executive director said? He said, you know what? I think this is a really radical idea. I don't think it's going to fly, but this was really scary to me. It's one of those things that you think about leaving. I think we should have a chief knowledge officer, an IT admin, a library, records management, and all that stuff should report to them. Now, you want to talk about roles and responsibilities in curriculum, take that. And it's information management. Be careful what you look for. Having said that, what I'd like to do about this is kind of like the engineering stuff, and I will volunteer to do something if Denise reminds me, because I'm only going to give you a 3-week window to get to me. And then I'm turning the BlackBerry off, I'm not answering the computer, and no one's going to know where I am. No, this place you won't know.
We have SEAL Team 6, we'll find you.
Honey, who do you think trains SEAL Team 6?
No, my husband's ONR.
So, I can still hide from them. So you know what? You guys do this stuff. I don't know how to do this stuff. All I know is how to complain. So I will write up a list of all the things that my boss and my managers, all 142 pointed heads of them, have come up with that they want knowledge management to do. You can then take that list, add to it, take from it, bin it, try to come up with curriculum or whatever. But you know, rather than, give me something concrete to work with. And if you go off and you do a theoretical thing about let's map the cerebellum and do funny things with electrons, that's fine. And if you want to go out and figure out how to build a tool to do, you know, I don't care. But let's start with something real.
Absolutely, and I think that's what Mike and Send that list to them.
Somebody has to bug me because I've got like 2,000 other things to do.
Ellen, I'll show Ellen.
I was actually going.
Let's let David.
I think Mike Stankowski mentioned that we should consider the principles in starting. We never discussed what they were, and I don't know what they are, but if there are a set of principles that would help us all give them kind of a common direction, we should be aware of them and use them.
Oh, you're in that nice new.
I have a little humorous one on that in terms of principles. I call it the first principle of KM, and its name is the Crapper Principle, and it basically says just don't build a pile of crap. I'll offer that as one of those principles.
Denise, I wanted to pick up on your point about what we would do as a community and tell you a very short story about a group here in Washington that started 10.5 years ago. You've heard Steve Denning's name mentioned a lot. Well, Steve was one of the members of this group that started, ended up creating something called Golden Fleece. And Denise Lee, myself, and several others were all members of that. Now here's the story. Within 3 months, we had created a future story. We called it future story rather than future scenario. We created a future story for ourselves that sounded like a fairy tale. And we accomplished it because the community bought into that single story.
So you and Denise need to be sure to be involved in some of these to help create the future vision.
Sure.
I just had one thought about the ideas of national and international and that sort of thing. And I just my experience that in Europe they're way beyond the thinking of where we are and acceptance and adoption of just even know what KM stands for. And I'm just feeling like if we just roll that out, it'll remind me of a comment when it was you know, we have our baseball world championships, you know, and I saw a European on TV say, well, when we have world championships, we invite the rest of the world. And, you know, we have our Super Bowl world champion, same kind of thing. I'm just feeling a little like that. We might want to think about that when we think about what it means if we actually want to say international, how we drastically maybe approach this.
KM is really international, goes well beyond Europe. I just taught a class in
Oh, yeah.
Saudi Arabia of 24 people. I taught 22 Iranians a month or two before that.
Yeah,
The whole
obviously.
world, especially the lesser developed world, is really starting to try to move into KM.
Yeah.
Nobody can compete with the very low-cost labor of China, so they have to jump over the industrial age
Yeah.
and move into the knowledge age.
They're just all way past us, and I think that we want to think about our leadership role.
Just a quick comment. We mentioned governance as one of the things. Do we want to make that a separate working group to deal with issues like national, international structure, affiliation, connection to other bodies, or, because I'll tell you, in Shell, the information management community is trying to get real close to the KM community because they realize with a lot of the technologies and stuff, they don't need as many people, and they want to actually get to the knowledge leverage point, not just the data, not just the, you know, bite of information.
That sounds like a good idea.
That's a great.
Hey, Denise, can I comfortably, or can we comfortably agree that we've probably ventured into the open discussions area now? Okay, and we seem to have come to some consensus and common ground. I mean, yes, it's a variation, but we all seem to be going in the same direction, and everyone seems to have the momentum to keep it going now. So up on this panel, you will see 4 sheets of paper, each one of them for a question, okay? And we're also going to add the 5th one up there, which is for the governance, for a committee on governance. So if we're serious and we want to commit, print your name on one of those places, okay?
And we will set up a wiki subsite, a sub-wiki for each of these areas. I'll talk to Peter and Jan about we're going to set up for just to communicate within that group. We'll continue to support them.
Also, I want to remind you all, the blue today is for the this particular question. So if you have any thoughts that didn't come out, please fill it out on the blue paper and stick it on there. I hate that little one single blue letter up there with all the rest of them. So add some to it.